Hello and welcome to the Comedy Studio podcast. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I start early? I didn't hear go.
The only
I only saw a thumbs up.
podcast.
And you know I don't speak sign language. The only podcast. I'm your host,
The only
Paul
podcast.
Jones, and your other host is Archie from Riverdale. Welcome to the show, Archie.
I don't even get that reference.
You don't know Archie? The famous Archie comics, Archie?
I know that he exists.
Okay. I of course am your host, Rick Jenkins. Your guest today is also Rick Jenkins. I'm sorry, I watched that Trump interview and I'm all discombobulated. I feel like my brain is bleeding out of my ears right now. I'm your host, Danny Hatch. Your other host is Eli Levy. Thanks for joining us today, Eli.
Hello, how's it going?
It's going well. Did you see the Trump interview that dropped today?
No, I don't ever watch those. I'll tell you what I have done is I subscribe to the Boston Globe now because I only trust print media now.
Okay. Like the National Enquirer.
No, just the Boston Globe. That's local papers, basically.
How much is a Boston Globe subscription?
Cost me about $4.50 a week.
Okay.
Yeah, and I get all the issues and online access, so.
It's a little steep, but okay, good for them, and good for you for supporting journalism.
I can't tell you how great it is to see a headline that tells me everything I need to know, and it isn't clickbait.
Now, do you get physical paper copies or just the online edition?
No, I want
copies.
I like the physical copies.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
It reminds me of summers with my grandparents. I'm glad to hear it. Do you read it on the shitter? I know you. No.
I'm still trying to get through that Mark Maron book because my mom just sent me a text saying that she bought me the new Jim Carrey book, so now I have a new bathroom book I have to get to.
Okay, I heard that Jim Carrey book is good. It's like
that's what my mom is saying.
Half novel, but it's about Jim Carrey, but he's also crazy.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of good advice, and also vaccines don't work.
Yeah, vaccines don't work, and I'm Andy Kaufman, and I was banging a 19-year-old for a year, and then we broke up, and she killed herself.
And that'll be chapter 1.
You remember when that happened? Everyone kind of just glossed over that.
I had no idea that happened, actually. What do you?
He was dating. Maybe she wasn't 19, but she was significantly younger than he was, and I think he gave her an STD, and they broke up, and then she committed suicide.
I mean, it's very similar to Elon Musk and Grimes, right? I mean, he's like 55 and she's like 7, right?
Oh, Eli.
And they have a child together.
Why would 7 be the number you choose? Well, whatever. I think she's probably.
Comedy is all about exaggeration.
That's true. It is, and you can exaggerate in any direction you want. It's.
I went very low. I think I underestimated a lot.
Well, that's how you learn in comedy. Their kid has a funny name. We don't have to get into that. Our special guest today, he's the owner of Rick's Sex Dungeon LLC. Please welcome.
Why would you choose that?
Please welcome to the show, Rick Jenkins.
Comedy's all about exaggeration.
Now, Rick, am I hearing an echo or am I just crazy?
I'm getting echoes in my headphones.
In the mind of Rick Jenkins.
30 seconds before the show started, trying to get your recording set up right.
All right, let me try it without.
Whoa.
Oh, it's worse. It's a lot worse, Rick. I don't know what you did. Did you curse the computer?
I took out my headphones.
Huh.
Oh, wait. No, it sounds okay now.
Yeah, it does sound okay now. It does.
Here we go.
Okay.
Here we go. All right.
Rick, how are you?
Doing well.
There's an echo still. I don't know what we can do. I hope it will be fine in post. Having a hard time today. Did you watch the Trump interview, Rick? The 38-minute one?
No, I only saw the headline of the death toll is what it is.
Yep. And all sorts of other stuff was in the interview. How have you been lately, Rick?
Pretty good. Yeah, getting through COVID pretty well. Sam Jay is in the New York Times today. Joe List has a thing out. Gilbert Gottfried is with Harrison Greenbaum tonight. And boy, our shows online have been great.
They have.
Yep, they've been super killer. And it's nice to have 2 Rick Jenkins telling me that.
Maybe we both just took shrooms before this, like Joe Rogan. Danny, you there?
Huh?
I thought you froze for a second.
No,
want me to sign out and come back in?
No, I don't. Just take the headphones out.
Well, that's when we got the.
Yeah. We'll just
How's that now?
just give it a sec to give it. Oh God.
Oh.
That's what we get. That.
Welcome to show business, folks. This is what it's all about.
Yeah. Let me go into my system preferences.
And I was
set
so
up my-
upset that there was a possibility that Rick would miss the beginning of the show, and now I'm realizing that was the ideal timeline, and I have entered the darkest timeline. Actually, everyone listening has entered the darkest timeline.
I have no problem checking out at all.
The Comedy
No,
Studio.
Rick,
has
I want you to be
ultimate
part of a
timelines.
show. You've made a commitment as our guest every week in a row. I want it to sound okay. But if the slight echo is the best we're gonna get,
This is the
then look.
Comedy Studio podcast, not the employees of the Comedy Studio podcast.
Well, it is the employees of the Comedy Studio podcast.
shit.
Rick is only a special guest. Rick, you told me something exciting about your life yesterday.
Oh,
You hit a bit of a milestone.
there's new exciting stuff happening every day.
You and forgive me if this is too forward to get into on the show, but yesterday was 90 days sober for you.
Yeah.
Oh, congratulations.
The latest thing. 90 days.
I
which
lift
is,
my
sort of
glass,
a-
sir.
Sort of a milestone kind of thing that they say by 90 days, most of the stuff should be out of your system.
That's fantastic. Congratulations.
So I'm very, very happy about that. Trying to stay focused during COVID.
That's good. That's very
You're doing
good.
a great job. How's it feel?
Feels pretty good. I think getting a lot more done. Like I said, just focusing on the shows, and I'm writing a lot more jokes, and very excited about the way things are going. One step at a time, as the kids say.
Is that what the kids
The
say?
kids
That's
don't
usually
say
what
that
my dad
anymore.
says.
The
Are the kids all getting high? Is that it?
They've got to be. If you're not getting high, and Rick, no offense to you, now that you're sober, if you're not getting high in this day and age, you're bonko, baby.
I was wondering that. What do you think when they start talking about the COVID generation? Obviously, Trump and COVID is the huge thing of this time. What is that generation going to be? What are those kids growing up now? Do we think like from 10 to 30 or
Is it?
20-year-olds?
I think
Well-
it's just going to be folks who are Generation Z, right? Are they?
Yeah,
are
I
they
mean, people
renaming
my
Generation
age,
Z?
people my
I don't know.
roommates' age.
Are you part of would you consider yourself part of the COVID generation?
I'm
I don't
living
think
through
so.
it, so I don't
Yeah,
know.
we all
What
lived
does
through
the
it, but I
COVID
haven't
generation
come
mean?
in-
Is it people that live through it, or is it people that are born in
I think
it?
it's
or-
Coming of
that's-
age.
Yeah, it's when you come of age, and we've all. You had me at come, and then you really had me at of age, and that's how you make that kind of joke.
Ah,
I'm learning so much. It's very educational, this podcast.
What were you saying about generations, Rick? Rose's father's big into generational theory, so on the off chance he's going to listen to this, and I know he's not, I want to make sure I sound like I
yeah,
take it
yeah.
in.
Me too. I consider myself just the tail end of the Vietnam generation, so I can see the baby boomers from where I am. And one of our guests last week said something really cute and clever about the fact that Eli, you would remember who it was, that in 20 years we're going to have a whole group of homeschooled kids who have no idea how to associate with anybody.
Oh, that was the person I put in the promo?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember her name because that was the first
Okay.
time I ever met her, but she was very funny, and that was a very good point.
Yeah.
We are in the age of the live streamer right now. Anybody who wants to can live stream themselves doing pretty much anything, whether it's playing music, video games, mostly video games, making food, whatever. Like, you don't need a TV station to make a cooking show anymore. You can just buy a webcam, a microphone, tripod, and just show
Yeah,
yourself
but you
making
can't
stuff.
interact with anybody. You
Sure
can't
you
develop
can.
social skills.
Yeah, you can.
Everything is self-taught and
Comment section,
No,
Zoom
2
room.
steps away.
Yeah, you can talk to people. In fact, it's never been easier to talk to other people. At least not technologically. It's never been easier to communicate with people. However, socially, it is more difficult because you don't learn the skills to talk to people.
Yeah,
However,
I think we're gonna have some socially not well-developed people.
well, we
coming out
had
of this.
not socially well-developed people before this too. So it's kind of, some people are also just born that way.
Look, I've regressed certainly. I don't like I don't like the thought of socializing. Even this gives me the willies. The thought of talking to someone over Zoom. I hate it. If I never hang out with anyone again in my life, I don't think I'd mind. I have my books and my poetry to protect me. The quarantine has really sapped any interest I ever had in being social, and
Well-
that's fine with me.
Well, Rick, you've talked about it before. There are some comics that love doing comedy, not because it's social, but because it's antisocial, because they're just talking at people. They're not talking to people, so they don't have to have a conversation. So it works
Yeah,
for
I
them.
think that's a real that's gonna be really interesting to see how that develops, because a lot of comedians have really taken to the Zoom shows and such, because you can pretend you're being intimate while not being on the same continent as someone.
But at the same time, there are some people that love doing comedy because of the social aspect to it. They love like getting feedback from the customers, from the audience members. They love
Hmm.
they love talking to people after the show. They love hanging out with the comics after the show, before the show. A lot of comics do comedy for the hang.
Yeah, a lot of it is about the connection,
Yeah.
and it's just a question of, do you get that connection over line? Can you take a class online and get as much out of it as you do being in the classroom?
If
My generation can't. Maybe your generation can.
Sure, your generation, and Rick, don't take this to heart, but don't take this the wrong way. But trying to walk you through anything like technical
Mhm.
is torturous,
Yeah.
and it's not because of you. It's because you didn't grow up with the technology.
Yeah, Tim
You know-
McIntyre had a theory that the difference is whether or not you had video games as a kid.
Mhm.
Because if you're a kid and you start with video games, you understand it's just something you interact with.
Yeah.
Whereas if you didn't have video games, then it's just technology that's a little overwhelming.
It's a good way to put it.
I will say, in terms of learning
You had
online,
Pong though.
even in like real school, if there is any chance of slacking off and not doing work, I'm there. If there is any way of not getting caught not doing schoolwork, I'm there.
I wonder how far the school leniency is going to go. Because you've got to cut these kids some slack, or you did have to, at least when this first started.
Yeah.
But I do wonder if, whenever schools start the new year online only, is there's going to be that same amount of slack cut to the kids because it's online, and how
Well,
can we really enforce it?
Yeah, I know BU. I know a couple teachers, and apparently what BU is doing anyways is, let's say you have a class of 30 people meeting Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. 10 people will meet in the classroom and the other 20 will be online, and that will change. So you will only have to be in the classroom one day a week, but you'll have to attend online all three.
And the instructor, are there 3 instructors that are tagging in and out, or is it going to be one instructor getting 3 waves of 10 people's germs?
I mean, I think
over
the
course of
teachers are
week?
getting the
I'm
raw
not clear
end
on
of this
that,
deal.
but I believe there's some staggering on that as well.
I mean, the teachers are just getting thrown in the fire here. They're getting the worst end of this deal
Yeah.
by far. Like, as far as like the teachers are concerned, they're just getting kicked in the dick. The schools
Again,
want to
with,
open,
Dick
and the
teachers. What's going on in your mind today, Eli?
penis, vagina.
You're so inappropriate. You're on such a dark path. I can sense it.
It's because I saw on Facebook that my mom is tuning in right now. So
Is she? Oh, so you're cranking up the charm.
there we go. I'm gonna get a text in a couple seconds, I think.
Have you extended to your mother our invitation that she can appear again on the show?
I have. I don't think
No, I'm just kidding.
I have not made a formal invitation, but I have let her know that it is on the table.
Yeah, but not until there's a formal invitation. That is
Formal
a must for this
invitation with
podcast.
letter, card stock.
You need to get a notary to stamp and sign it.
I'm gonna put 2 stamps on it.
Well, hello, Eli's mom.
Yeah, a guy who started out doing comedy with us, Brian Joyce, actually has an afternoon radio talk show in Tennessee where he's very anti-Trump and very left.
Where in
I'm
Tennessee?
not exactly sure where in Tennessee
Oh, okay.
it is, but I wanted to make sure I pointed that out to you guys.
So I was talking to my friends and we were talking about Memphis. Memphis is, I mean, they're not doing great with the virus, to be honest, but like not in Memphis, but in like Knoxville, Tennessee, there are people that are like, how some people will call out people for not wearing a mask in public?
Mhm.
There are people calling people out in Knoxville for wearing a mask. It's that bad. Like, they're like, why are you wearing a mask? You're like spreading fear.
Right.
It's the opposite. You're not spreading anything. That's the point.
Good old Tennessee, man.
Look.
Best
Is wearing
barbecue,
a mask fun?
worst
No,
people.
of course not. And your breath smells and it's weird. But just fucking do it. I mean, Jesus. Did I jokingly compare it to being waterboarded a couple months ago on this podcast? Yes,
You gotta
I
admit,
did.
if there wasn't
Do I
a virus
regret
going on,
such
it's like two
rhetoric?
parts of Tennessee that are good.
I'm gonna still wear a mask when this virus is over, just to
You know, we
discourage any conversation with me.
Don't talk
Yeah,
to
we
me.
used to see down in Chinatown a lot of older Asian women would wear masks just out and about, and yeah, we thought, oh well, they're crazy with umbrellas for the sun and masks for the germs, and
Well, it's
now it
just
turns out
part
they
of
were right.
their culture in China and Japan and Korea. It's part of their culture that if you're sick, you just wear a mask so you don't spread it to other people. That's just like part of the normal day to day. If you're
How
like,
do we
oh,
get
I
there in
yeah,
the
I
country?
have a cold. I guess I wear a mask now.
Do we need to like deprogram these people who with the masks? Like, how do we how
We
do
need to hack
we
the matrix. We really need to fix this.
yeah, change the code? But how do we get to a
I got
point?
a
How do we
text from
get
my
to that
mom, by
point?
the way, just now.
Oh, good. What did your mom say?
I am happy to appear on the podcast and also wash your mouth out with soap.
How close are you to Hamilton
What
County?
kind of soap? Why are we
Hamilton
going
County,
into-
Memphis is in Shelby County, so I don't know where Hamilton County is.
Okay, because Brian was just posting that the Hamilton GOP convention. He's got pictures on his website.
Let me put it this way: if he is,
Republicans, and none of them are wearing masks, and all are.
if he is
hugging
not in
and-
Memphis or not in Chattanooga, he is in the bad part of Tennessee,
They're hugging?
or
I
Nashville, I
think
guess.
it's
3 parts.
Chattanooga.
Chattanooga's awesome. Chattanooga is a fantastic town.
We've been doing some Zoom shows. You folks, you fellas think they've been going well?
The Zoom
Rick, you
shows I think
adapted
have been
to
going
the-
Yeah,
great.
I loved them. Yeah, it really feels like, I mean, it took me a while to really get my head around exactly what we were doing and how I was approaching it and all. But yeah, we're not going to, once I got over the initial depression of, oh, we're not going to be able to open our live club for a while at least, the
Mhm.
idea then came to me of like, wow, what would be more exciting than starting a new club online? And jumping into it with that philosophy is got me writing a lot more and talking to old friends and connecting. It's been great.
Yeah, I think it is good that we are trying, and honestly, I'm proud to try my best. Because that's really all you can do. And at the very least, we can say that we tried.
Yeah, put it on my gravestone, baby.
Put it on a gravestone that we get before we actually die.
We should all pitch in and get one for the club, just in case. Just in case.
I think it's a boss move to buy your headstone before you die.
Oh yeah, I want to say what goes on there.
Yeah, I want the person that's engraving it to not know it's for me, and they're engraving it while I'm standing there like, oh, who's this for?
Mm-hmm. And then the assassin that I hired bursts into the
Right
room,
there.
puts 2 in my chest, and the guy's like, "Holy shit!"
You want to get it stained with your own.
exactly.
Well, my family has their gravestones already purchased and ready to go.
That's boss move.
When my brother passed away, everyone else in the family was like, well, we want to be buried together, so we might as well get the whole plot and have everything set.
I respect that.
So what's going to go on your gravestone, Rick?
I was not part of this group decision because at the time I was married and it would required more people. But now that that has changed, I'm rethinking it.
Are they going to let you back into the plot? You think? I
We
mean,
just
I
have to
don't.
dig up a few people.
Is there room? Are you gonna have to go like 12 feet under?
Just run in there, cannonball. Take me out if you can.
I hope you can be buried with your family. We're probably, let's be honest, the 3 of us, statistically, at this point, I don't think that we're gonna have the luxury of being buried in a grave. At least a private one.
I mean, cremation
think
is
because of space?
probably for.
No, I think because either the world's gonna end or we're all gonna be put in a mass grave.
Dude,
But-
graves are expensive as shit.
Yeah, I don't need it. Put me in one of those bags that it's turned into a tree.
I do like those, but I can't believe how expensive like dying is in this country. You know what I
Nope,
mean?
Ain't that the truth?
Funeral service, burial plot.
You know, having
Headstone.
gone through it, yeah, it's not as expensive as I thought. You know, you can get away for a few thousand.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Having died, it's pretty fine.
They really try to upsell you on a lot of stuff, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, we were fortunate that we had a local funeral director who was, knew the family by extension and handled everything really well. I've got no complaints with that industry right now.
Oh, good. Put me in a cardboard box, leave me in the sun. When I'm soupy enough, just pour me in a swimming pool.
On this podcast, we should live Yelp review funeral parlors. That'd be a lot of fun.
Man.
That'd
Hey,
be
the
pretty
one
sweet.
that killed my grandparents? Good shit. Actually, I do have a funny story about my grandparents being buried. My grandfather he was a colonel in the Navy. So he was buried and he fought in Vietnam. So he was buried in Arlington. And my grandmother, when she died, was buried with him. And when my grandfather died, it probably took like 6 or 7 months between him dying and him getting to be buried, because there was like a backlog at Arlington, which always struck me as unsettling, to say the least.
You're on the wait list.
Yeah. And then when my grandmother died, it seemed like that was going to be the same thing, but for whatever reason, they were able to bury her pretty quickly. But the actual process of burying her, once the service was done and we all went to Arlington, it was a fucking mess. They were like, we're not ready for us. They were like actively digging the grave with like
That's
a
like us
backhoe.
dealing with like a full house and there's
Yeah.
only like one
Yeah, it
person
was-
at the door.
It was chaos. It was exactly like that. It was like February, so it was freezing, and we're all just like standing around watching like 4 dudes like scramble trying
We've
to dig
been
a
waiting
grave
for
over. There's,
our
like, all these
funeral for
soldiers, like,
20 minutes.
standing at full attention, just watching everything. And I think we might have left before she went in the ground.
We're gonna go to a different funeral home. You'll be
Because
hearing.
they just weren't ready yet. And for all the pomp and, there's a lot of pomp and circumstance that goes into it, which is what surprised me. Because you get there and it's like everything's super orderly, and there's all the guys with the guns, and they're like twirling them around and like yada yada, doing the whole, and it's all completely synchronized, no lag, 100%. And then we get to the burial site, and it's just a mess. So I do have a bone to pick with the industry. I'm sorry that you had such a great time, Rick, but not all of us are as lucky as you.
Well, a very quick funny story I've told on stage and around before. But yeah, absolutely true that when my mom passed away, so this is decades and decades ago, they gave a picture of my mom to the funeral director, so they would make her up for an open casket. But they gave a picture of my mom with her sister. And because of the cancer and everything, my mom didn't look like she did in the
Okay.
picture, so they made her up to look like in the picture.
Uh-huh.
And they got the wrong person. So they made her up to look like her sister. So when we got there, we were just like, who the hell is this? And my aunt was just completely freaked out.
Yeah, that's pretty freaky.
Oh God.
And did your mother and your aunt, did
It's
they
like
have
a
like a
Twilight
contentious
Zone.
relationship in life? And was this like the final blow?
No, they got along okay. However, the aunt was extremely, extremely religious and had actually donated an extra amount of money to her born-again pastor to try to raise my mom from the dead.
Oh, no.
Because Jesus said that, I think it's something like death is but a sleep until the Lord, or something like that. So she was trying to get my mom.
But that's not meant
Did
to
that
be
guy do anything?
Yeah, right. That's a good question.
What?
Did he pull it off?
No. Well, my dad was furious because they didn't get along. So my dad was furious, just screaming in the funeral home, "She's dead. She's not coming back. She's dead." And my aunt going, "No, she moved." It was a mess.
Are you serious? She
Oh,
was like, I
God.
saw oh my God.
She like kicks the
I think she
coffin.
switched.
Oh,
She
she
didn't switch,
moved.
You push. It was exactly like the parrot sketch in Python.
Wow.
Wow.
But I saw her twitch. No, that was you pushing the coffin.
Doesn't that
No
happen
wonder
in
you're a funny
what's
man.
the movie called Death at a Funeral?
Mm-hmm. Yep. That is the name of the movie.
Also, we have a guest coming in 3 minutes. Do we want to talk about him?
Cue him up. Well, I just have a quick question. Did your aunt get her money back?
No, they were until she died. They were very, very active in the church.
That is abhorrent.
I just
That-
want to see what this priest did to like try and bring her back.
Right.
It should be said, you may not realize this, Eli, but a priest is specifically Roman Catholic. So this was not Roman Catholic.
What were they
He'd
called?
be considered a minister.
Minister. What did the minister do?
He said, first off, I'm not a priest. I just want everyone in the room to know this. I am but a humble minister. And if I can't do it, well, look, I'm not a priest.
Yeah,
Now,
the big thing is priests can't get married and ministers can. A minister is basically the head of a...
The minister's like, that's what's up.
The manager of another faith.
You're coming back to life. You're alive. You're alive. You're alive. You're alive. Did you get to see it? Like, was this at the funeral? Did the
And
minister
oh my
stand
god.
over
Yeah.
the body and try? Oh my god!
Yeah, because they allow the family to come in for the first viewing.
What if
And
that's
so
like
we were
something they
all
offer
there,
with
and
every
it was
funeral?
actually complicated because of the fact that we wanted a picture of my mom, but there wasn't a really good one. So we got an 8x10 photo of my mom with her kids, which seemed very nice because we weren't going to show my aunt in the casket. So we closed that, put the 8x10 with my mom and the kids.
You can just
But
tape
that
it over her face.
Well, but that particular picture didn't have me in it because it had been taken
Oh.
recent enough. So my dad wanted to make sure that I was involved as well. So they got my 8x10 for comedy. So you went to the casket and you saw this little picture of my mom and 3 kids, and then this big 8x10 of me sitting on top of the casket. And yeah, and people were very confused. And if you opened it up, you would see my aunt. No one knew who was there.
Did you say that you have told this on stage, or you've never told this on stage?
I've told pieces of it, yeah.
This is fantastic.
There's so many funny images backed into that story, Rick.
That
Wow.
is. I would
yeah,
not
we
say
got a
that as a
guest.
job well done.
You set up the guest. I'm gonna go grab a little bit of coffee. I'll be back in 1 minute.
Oh yeah, he's not in the room yet.
Can we start with
okay.
asking what's the worst funeral he's been to?
That would be a good way to kick it off. Oh my god. Hey, look, it's a fun one today. We're playing it fast and loose.
Do you think that that's something they offer with every funeral? Like, hey, if you pay us $500, we'll try and bring him back for you.
There's some real I don't know how it goes in the Judaism community, but there's some real charlatans associated with Christianity.
I mean, we buried a lot of our family members, but it's mostly cremation. So with cremation, I don't think they can offer the bring
it's hard
back.
to. it's like. Yeah, that's a bit tougher. It's like when someone shreds a bunch of documents and then they hire like 10 people to like piece them all back together. Maybe they take all the ashes and like try to just stack them on top of the other. So yeah, we got a guest today. He has entered the waiting room. You might have heard our podcast last week where we talked to Brian Kiley, who was the monologue writer for the Conan show. Well, we've got his direct
Conan the
competition on
Barbarian.
today. What's that?
Conan the Barbarian.
Conan the Barbarian. He's
And
got a
his
talk
famous
show. It's not
monologues.
very good.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Our guest today, he was the head monologue writer for the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. He did some work with the WWE. He taught at Emerson, and I'm going to admit him now. Any last words before we let our guest in? I really hope Rick comes back soon.
Did you say WWE?
Yeah.
What did you do for WWE?
I don't know, but I know that I assume he did some maybe he did some writing for, because Eli, I hate to break it to you, wrestling is fake.
It's so fucking cool.
It's scripted.
Right.
So maybe he wrote the wrestling shit. I don't know. All right. Well, it looks like Rick isn't going to be back in time for me to wait till he's back in front of the computer to let the guest in. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our guest for today, the incredible Jon Rineman. Welcome to the show, John. Oh, he's connecting to audio. John, welcome to the show.
Hey, John, how you doing?
Good. You look very comfortable.
I am extremely comfortable. Yes.
Rest
Aren't we
assured,
all?
Rick will be back in a second, we hope. He just got up, said something about meeting a guy for some drugs, but he should be back in a sec. Oh, here he is.
You fit one pill into that time. Oh, never mind. Sure. Nothing. Never happened.
John, we had a question. We heard you
hurts.
worked for the WWE.
Yes.
What was that all about?
Wow, you guys are coming in with the heat.
Hard hitting. That's us.
Yeah, I was there about a year ago for a few months, and it was an interesting experience, and learned a lot. It unfortunately, they've gone through some tough times, as you guys have probably read, and the pandemic just made it worse. But they were already kind of, I think they thought they were going to go one direction, and ended up not being able to, and as things shook out, it just didn't, after a good fun first month and getting to work with some people I've always loved, it just felt like less and less of a fit. And I was going through some personal stuff at the time that made it very difficult to learn a new job and to keep up with everything.
Was it still a writing job?
Yeah, it was creative. I
Oh,
see.
okay.
I respect the business, so I don't like to call it writing. But yeah, it was getting to work with Vince and a few occasions, and Bruce Pritchard, who has the best podcast in the world. No offense, but
What? There are no other podcasts, John.
well, well, goddamn, his is a podcast.
What?
Well, I don't know what you want to call it. So,
All I know is this is the only one.
If this was the
well,
only one,
I've
it still
heard.
wouldn't
Well,
be the
there's, as he
best.
would say, there's rumor and innuendo of another podcast
How is
hosted
that,
by
though?
hosted by Bruce Pritchard, and he's a really cool guy. And yeah, so it was one of those things where um, I did learn a lot, and it kind of without I can't give away too much, but it kind of led into the next thing I'm working on, and it but yeah, it's one of those deals where it was just kind of like you know at a different point in my life and my career that could have really been something, and and we all kind of knew it, but it just was it just felt like the timing wasn't right, and but I learned more from Vince in that short amount of time than so many other people, and just the way he does business, and um, the way he kind of thinks outside the box.
Yeah,
And,
how is it different from his public persona, or is it?
okay, so he's you know there's three different tiers, and so I'm not in on the closest tier. I've been on the closest tier with someone else, um, but as far as Vince goes, I'm not. I was never quite in on that inner circle, but um, his personality, for the most part, was strikingly different than you would see on TV. And it may have something to do with uh, just culture and the world and his age and where he is in life and his maybe mellowing a little bit. But he was very soft spoken for the most part, to the point where you really had to listen to what he was saying to make sure you got everything. Um, he listens to everyone's ideas. He does not cut you off. He doesn't precondition, and that was a thing I had to learn about. That even if he doesn't like where you're going at the beginning, he'll respectfully listen and maintain eye contact. And he's just very. He loves to teach. Um, he loves communicating, and he loves to keep that open, and he likes to have everyone involved. There are some ticks that you'll probably hear about from people. He doesn't like it when you sneeze. He doesn't
Well,
like
I
it
can
when you.
understand that now.
Yes, he was ahead of his time. Again, the man's a genius. He's a visionary,
There's a storm
and
brewing.
he doesn't like it when you nod. And at first, I didn't get that, but then I kind of noticed how I feel when people nod while I'm talking, and it kind of makes me feel like they're cutting off my like. It's like, wait, let me finish. Like before you say you agree, you know what I mean? Like when you're talking to somebody and they just start not. It's like, well, I'm not done. Like let me finish my point. And so, but he had just little things like instead of saying no. I mean, I've like everyone else right now. I've been reading all the reports of what's going on there, and I haven't asked anybody if it's true, but at least when I was there, um, you know, he would if something didn't work, he would tell you why, and he would explain it to you and use it as a teaching moment. And if you were close, he'd say, we can't do it because of X, Y, Z, but good thinking. And when he liked an idea, he'd light up, and it was, even being as cynical, and even at the time, like I said, I had other stuff going on, and it was my mind was elsewhere a lot of the time, sadly. But when he likes one of your ideas, it's the Santa Claus feeling. It's like Vince McMahon. When he smiles and goes, "Oh, that's cool." You're like, yeah, it tops anything. It was kind of a career highlight for me. So,
Do you have any wrestling experience yourself?
How
What
do
do
you
you?
get into it?
Well,
Wrestling.
I was just a fan growing up, and I just loved it. It just had everything that you know that you'd want, for someone like me. It had sports, it had music, it had um, theatrics, it had you know humor, with Bobby the Brain Heenan and Rowdy Piper, and um, then of course my first year watching was The Undertaker's rookie year in the then
Ooh.
WWF, and I think that set the tone. I think it was just like, I mean, he's their greatest character ever, and so I think that, if you come in the same year as their greatest character ever, you kind of, it becomes a part of you. And so I think that, and I got to meet him a couple times before I was even working there, and work with him. So um, I was just a fan, and I last year, um, it looked like there were going to be some other things, and they fell through. And then someone who I was friends with there, who's also no longer there, um, he said, "Why don't you come give this a shot? It's kind of on your bucket list." And I did it, and it's fascinating to see. It was good to learn the business side of show business in addition to the entertainment side.
Yeah,
But
being in the business, are you starstruck anymore? And does it matter whether you're working together or it's just someone in the hall?
well, given that given that I haven't really seen many other humans for many months, I
Well,
think I'd be
yeah.
pretty starstruck by. I think the starstruck factor will come back. I think that I will be. I think for me, the the most starstruck moment I had was, there's a wrestler named Bray Wyatt, and he's kind of one of the. It's interesting. His dad was a wrestler when I was a kid. His dad was IRS, and so now Bray. Sorry, Bray. I just broke kayfabe there to let that slip. But anyway, um, Bray was. He's one of my favorites, and he's an interesting guy in that. Um, just for so many years he had all this potential, wasn't working out, and he went through sort of a life crisis himself, a bunch of them, and he was off TV for over a year, and they didn't have anything for him, and so he basically created this new character on his own, and he invested his own money and uh, you know developing the character and renting the studio and getting the writer on board, and then he bought this mask that he wears, and he did it all himself, and became the most the most over, which means popular character in the company. And so for since I left Fallon, I've been listening to Bruce Pritchard's podcast, Something to Wrestle, and as it turns out, Bruce was the guy producing the vignettes for Bray Wyatt. And so there was one I got to work on and kind of be in as like a puppeteer. And then there was another one that I thought I was just there to help Bruce. And so this is Bruce Pritchard. This is the guy that was Brother Love in the 80s. So this is like as far as like wrestling creative types, I mean, he's up there. And we got everything set, and he just said, "All right, John, take it from here." And he gave me the script and left. And it was just the camera guy and Bray and me. And Bray about to go into character. He's got a couple different personas, but he was doing like the funny guy one. And he looked at the script and he's like, "I don't want to say any of this." And I on the fly rewrote it with him, and he liked it, and he liked the jokes. And so for me, that was my last week there, and I think that was kind of just them, kind of a, here, have a good memory before you head on out of here. But that made me starstruck as far as wrestling goes,
Yeah.
just because I just admire the hell. Like, the day I got to work with Bruce was just one of the coolest days, and so that made me starstruck, and I'll always remember that. And of course, Vince. Anytime Vince comes into the room, um, it's so hard because you got to be concise with him. But it's hard, when you got Vince McMahon listening to you, you just want to talk for 2 hours, just be like, and then run your grocery list by him, see if he goes, marshmallows.
You got that job pretty much. You got that job pretty much just from reputation and and connections. There was no like submitted packet or
No,
how did you get the job?
no, and the way it worked out was, um, it was, I probably should have gone to work on Bruce's show, and Bruce now is running everything. So Bruce is, as he talks about, kind of a cautionary tale in that he's a guy who his departure from WWE was very similar to mine from the Tonight Show, and so he was out of there for about a decade, and it was always just like, well, he'll never go back. He'll never be back in wrestling. And then he started doing this podcast, and kind of people realized, oh, he's actually not such a bad guy. He's like all these stories and rumors we've heard about him being difficult to work with. He's very self-deprecating and very funny, but honest. And he started to get more popular than them, like just from doing his podcast and telling stories. And he came back, and it was this feel-good story. And that was the cool thing for me, was to see Bruce Pritchard, this guy I'd been listening to, who was out of the business, who was blackballed, back in the building, in the suit, and talking to Vince and like in his element. And well, flash forward to now, both the other two guys who were supposed to be running the shows have been fired, and now Bruce, who's supposed to be back as kind of a back for one last championship ring sort of thing, well, now he's playing every minute. Now he's running both shows, and the podcast is having to be postponed a lot, and there's worries about that going. And so he always says he's a be careful what you wish for a person, because you might get it and it might end up being more. But I got in there. There was this guy, Paul Heyman. He was running Monday Night Raw, and he just has a competition with whoever he's against. So whoever was on SmackDown, he just wanted to make sure he was just screwing them over somehow or whatever. And so he scooped me up, and then it just wasn't a good fit, because his show was like they'd say a wrestling show. It was all action, and and that's not me. I'm more about characters and story, and what's gonna make people watch. If it's just like the action was, you got a bunch of luchadors versus what, it's like, yeah, no, I don't care. I'm not gonna watch that. But like, I that's how I got it. But then where I got stuck just wasn't a very good fit. And then, as time went along, I was just like, yeah, I don't know about this.
Joke writing for a wrestler.
So I wonder, when you say like there were rumors going around that he was difficult to work with or whatever, where do those come from? Do you think that's Vince? Does it come down from the top? I'm thinking specifically of Ellen, where everyone's like, oh, it was the producers.
I think with Bruce,
an organization thing.
Well, from what I understand about Bruce, and this is something I've learned, is that in the entertainment business, and I guess really any business, but really the entertainment business especially, if you're difficult at some point in your career, particularly early on, and that's people's first impression of you, it doesn't matter who you become or what you do or what strides you make. If you're not an on-camera person, if you're kind of behind the scenes, and so there is a chance to kind of spread rumors about you or whatever, that stuff never goes away. And so in Bruce's case, his first run with the then WWF was from about 1987 or 86 to 91. And by his own admission, he was very difficult to work with. He was young. He was in his 20s. He was kind of the star writer and producer. And so he was very demanding on people and very impatient, I guess, by his own admission. And there was just too many complaints. Too many people just didn't want to work with him anymore. And so Vince fired him. And then about a year and a half later, out of the blue, Vince brought him back. But the difference this time was, he reported to Vince, and it was like Vince and Pat Patterson, who were kind of the two. It was like, you're going to work with us. You're not going to be the boss of any of them, and you're gonna. This is your bubble. And then gradually over time, he kind of showed that he'd matured, and his role expanded, and he went back to doing more. But it's like any
Well,
business when like any
you
business,
also
like
do hear, you
when
also do hear gossip of like this actress turned down Harvey Weinstein and all of a sudden had a rep for being difficult to work with, or this woman said no to somebody and his manager was calling producers saying they're difficult to work with or awkward.
yeah, I think from with Bruce, what happened was he, at least according to him, he um, had a conflict with, I guess, Stephanie McMahon, who's Vince's daughter, and there was some confusion in the late, around 2008 or so, um, over who was in charge. She had a lead creative role, and he was fine with that. And but the wrestlers, whenever they didn't like an answer from Stephanie, they'd go to Bruce,
Oh.
and it was sort of the playing one parent against each other thing. And then so Bruce wouldn't know that they'd already gone to Stephanie, and he'd say, "Sure, yeah, go do it this way." And some other stuff happened, and then at the end of the day, it was that thing of, well, here's Bruce, he's not playing well with others again. And it all goes back to the late 80s, early 90s, and it's like you have a hard time shaking that reputation. And so I know about that too, where you can stand up and be a stand up guy for 2 years, but if you were difficult early on and people have those memories of you, and for whatever reason or another, someone uh, wants a power shift or wants to shake things up, it's always easiest to go after the person with the reputation. And so that's why I try to tell people that, uh, I know it's very hard when you're in your 20s and you have a good job and you have a big, that confidence, but it's very important um, to really check it at the door, because people will always remember that about you. And I think, for all we know with Ellen, I, I don't know. I'm just speculating. Who knows? Maybe she's been great for the last 2 years, but it's all those years before that people remember. And then the other thing too is the other thing I love about the as we're seeing with some of these, Ellen. By the way, Ellen's not going to be the only one. And what's funny to me is how these people forget that when you just kind of mistreat an employee, or you're disrespectful to them or whatever, they don't just vanish. You know what I mean? Like, they don't die. They continue to live as human beings. And the internet exists, and there are literally, the odds that you get away with anything now are so slim, because it's just almost everyone gets caught. And all it takes is one person being successful and finally saying, you know what, who's a jerk? And then that starts the second person. And then here
Yeah.
comes the third person. And then you're
I can't
done.
wait to get there till I can be successful
Yeah.
enough to call out the people who were
Oh,
jerks.
you're already talking about me every week on the podcast.
Well, it is interesting
Because
because
I gotta do it behind your back. That's
Well,
part
you
of
saw- yeah.
success.
live
Well,
on
you
the
saw what
podcast.
happened over the weekend. Like, there was someone who was rumored to be replacing Ellen, and then within an hour, and I even said to one of my friends, I was like, okay, so I said, this is really bad news for him. And my theory is that someone who doesn't like him put that out there, knowing, well, this is what's going to happen. And so yeah, I think it's there's been too much over the last. There's been just a lot of gaslighting over the last decade or so, and there's just been a lot of uh, fake niceness, and a lot of people, and this whole thing of I'm just a nice person, and we're just all about fun and trying to make you happy and all this. And it's like, okay, well, you know,
Well, that's
it's
complicated for a comedian. I mean, you're basically your whole job is to get people to identify with your point of view.
that's true, but I mean, I think if you look at the difference is, if we're going to talk about like talk shows, so like Leno and Letterman were, Jay's an odd guy in that he's a workaholic and he only
Mhm.
sleeps 3 or 4 hours a night. He's got that gene, the same gene my daughter has, by the way. So that's a lot of fun. And we all know about Dave. Dave's been very open about his vices and demons, and so, but we knew that, and so they could be what they were, and we knew who they were. They, in wrestling terms, lived the gimmick. They were, it's like Dave seems like a cranky, complicated guy with some issues who may or may not get along with his wife, and may or may not get along with. He might have arguments with his son, and he gets celebrities upset. Okay, that's it, and that's exactly who he was. And we knew he had his personal life was weird. And then there's Jay, and it's like, I mean, I can tell you, like, yeah, Jay writes jokes and works on cars. That's it. And I think that they just were who they were. And I think that came out in going against each other. I think they were each so aggressive that they kind of, their true selves came out. And I just think that, you know, this whole thing of, you know, I'm sorry, but just like the whole, like that whole group of like the whole Gwyneth Paltrow, this candle smells like my whatever. Get the fuck out of here, man! Like you people are terrible, and
Well,
so
boy,
it's like,
I was watching just coincidentally last night. I happened to watch one of Carson's last shows
mhm.
when Letterman was on, and the guest before Letterman was Clint Eastwood, who
Yeah,
was at the Unforgiven was just about to come out. Eastwood was he had just finished being mayor of Carmel. He's the biggest thing in the world, and Letterman sits down, and his very first words out of his mouth is saying, "Clint, would it kill you to put on a tie?"
yeah,
And all of a sudden, you realize at this point, Letterman is just hosting a shitty little 12:30 show. He's just this little punk, and he's just in the face of one of the biggest movie stars.
yep,
There was that real edge of I don't give a shit who you are.
yeah, and so yeah, I think that's what I'm saying, I think the sad reality is, I think a lot of the times from what I've seen, yeah, it is the behind the scenes people that kind of um take the fall just because it's
Yeah.
easier to forget about them and not care about them. And I think that the on camera people, and it's also difficult too because each the thing with Ellen is that, I mean, that's 150 200 people that have jobs on the line there,
Yeah.
and I have mixed emotions about it because all these employees are coming forward, and but it's not just costing Ellen. It's
Yeah.
She's going to go live in her mansion, and if she's miserable, I don't know. I mean, I don't wish depression or insanity on anyone, but so I'm not going to say whatever, but it's like, but there's going to be people looking for jobs or
Yeah.
looking for ways to pay their rent during a pandemic, and
Would you
that
say
only
it
have.
comes from? Would you say 99% of the time it comes from the top, or are these producers are insulating the person at top and creating a situation?
Well, what I can tell you from my experience is, um, and my apologies for this, I guess sounding, for happening to be two male hosts, but it's just the only stories I know. Um, I know that everyone genuinely loved writing for Jay and working there, and I know that everyone genuinely loves working for Seth and writing there. And the morale in each place, as I understand it, has always been good.
Hmm.
And so the way I will answer that is that if you have someone, and also, like on Curb, everyone has a blast on Curb, and the dirty secret about Larry, and you know, uh, it's so weird, even though it's just us talking. I'm like, you're still kind of afraid of breaking Larry's gimmick a little bit, but the secret about Larry is he's actually one of the nicest people in comedy, and nothing like, I mean, he plays a bad guy, and on TV and in real life, that's a gimmick he lives, and but he really is, by all accounts, has become one of the nicest, most generous people, and he'll listen to any idea, and he'll sit and talk with you, and he'll call you, and that's why everyone loves Curb, and that's why when he calls people up randomly at 9 in the morning, Ted Danson, hey, we're gonna do another year of Curb, everyone's like, all right, just because um, they're happy and they have fun there, and
that's how I am with my staff.
yeah, exactly.
I think that's
but
totally.
That's what makes
Call
a
me
good
at 9
company.
a.m. and say, we're doing it again, baby. It's another day.
But yeah, I will say that I just to frame it positively, when the person at the top is is a positive person, um, it trickles down. So I would imagine, you can imagine that the opposite probably holds true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, with any workplace, anyone working there knows everyone's kind of on the same page, whether it's good or bad. Like, if it's a good work environment, everybody kind of feels it. If it's a bad work environment, again, everybody kind of feels it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it doesn't always, and it changes, like, I mean, most common thing is that as a show goes along, it gets worse. But I've also heard stories of, a couple shows, famous shows, actually 3 or 4 even, where, um, the person in charge kind of saw the light and became friendlier, and it became a positive thing. And when it ended, people were sad, instead of saying, I think, like, one example I'll give you that I think is everyone knows is, well, 2 I'll give you, are both Letterman and Carson. And it's just that Carson, after when he retooled everything in 1988 to give himself a good couple of strong years to go out, and then Letterman, post scandal, when he kind of figured things out.
And
everyone
famously, you've got Kushnick.
Right, yeah, but I mean, it's there's I'm just talking about the person in charge,
Mm-hmm.
and so it goes both ways. um but what I've also learned is that it really you really can't read it on TV. A lot of times, things that look fun, um and then you'll check in with someone and they'll be like, oh my gosh, like, I'm miserable here, and so it's like,
Yeah.
oh really? So it doesn't always translate. But like I said, it all comes out with the wash right now. It's hard to keep that stuff secret, and
Yeah.
you just think about, um, you got to realize, if you take down the person at the top, there's a lot of people are going to be losing their jobs, and you got to think about them a little bit more. So I'm not saying, I'm like, again, these people speaking out against Ellen. I mean, if I mean, with her, I'd heard that stuff, and when I read the stuff that the producers had been doing, I was like, oh god, I was like, this is just, this is beyond ridiculous, and so something has to be done. But it's I will say it's not like that with everything. Like, it's not like every show with a toxic person means, a lot of times they're surrounded by people who do a lot of damage control and are good people and really do try to make it better for everybody, and have more stress and burden than you even know about. So,
how would you characterize your time working in TV?
well, I hope it resumes.
Sure, up to now.
No, I think it's probably in a couple weeks. It's in some.
good.
I mean, it's already, the ball's kind of rolling on something, and every time I'm ready to just be like, well, I guess that's not it, then there's this big long email of, all right, here's the next step, and it's like, and it's really too bad, because I have to say, I got really close to my NBA 2K team. I really did. I know they're fake, but like, I was really bonding.
My
Our
Grand
team
Theft Auto
chemistry-
Online
the
business is
chemistry
getting
is
good.
like in the 80s. Like, it's like we're going for 3 in a row.
Now they're in a bubble.
Yeah, yeah. But so I would characterize it so far as um, I'm just gonna be honest. I think that I uh, didn't, I got a dream job and got really into the weeds and head into the ground, and in so doing, um, didn't realize, never really stopped to finally say when enough might be enough. And I kind of got, instead of saying, all right, this is untenable, it was like, well, how do I, what trick do I use to keep going another 6 months?
Yeah. I have
And
to, I
at the
have to
same
go,
time,
I have to go in 2 minutes, but I did want to bring up, John, you also started like right away.
wait, you're leaving?
I have a very important call.
Yeah, it's a call that we didn't learn about until 90
Well,
minutes before the show.
how long are we gonna talk?
You guys can go as long as you want. I just have one of those calls you've been taking lately.
Okay.
He's got a
Okay.
TV gig.
Yeah. All right. Yeah,
That's
what were you
okay.
gonna say?
Fun.
Sorry.
You started right like out of school. I mean,
Mhm.
you didn't work in like an office and bring that ethos to television or whatever. You were thrown into it right away.
Well, I worked one place that I did have a TV job for about a year, and it was in news, and same sort of deal, sort of, where the first 6 months were great, and then the back six, the boss quit right in the middle, and she was her name is Heather, and she was just fantastic person who hired me, and to this day probably my favorite boss. She was just anyone that see, and there's always that thing about like the girl boss thing, like people are coming down on that now, and it's like she to me was evidence that, like, yeah, the good boss is a good boss, because she had if you're going to be judgmental, you're going to say, oh, this is going to be whatever. She was the greatest, and I'd love to work with her again someday. And she but then when she left, it became toxic and it became Lord of the Flies. And so I do think that when I went to Fallon, as soon as there was hints of trouble, and it happened again 6 months in when Anthony Jeselnik left, and he was sort of the office enforcer. He was the guy, kind of like Carla in Cheers, where you didn't pull any BS, because he'd hammer you down. And I knew to behave, and we all knew to behave. And so people like Morgan Murphy and myself, who maybe were not best of friends, knew to act best of friends, or else Anthony would take us both down. And then when he left, I just felt that little hint of dysfunction. I got all paranoid and I got all worked up just because of the last experience.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I was crazy, like it was just like, it's like when get very, and then also there's, that was the other part, is that when he left, they switched my role. Like originally I was the puppy that everyone wanted to play with. I was the right silly fun jokes that make Jimmy giggle in rehearsal. And then as Anthony left, we needed a hatchet man, and they knew a very good joke writer. And so then they were like, the buttons were being pressed as I look back to make me write a little bit meaner. And the problem with that is you become meaner. You become a meaner person. It's like being a hitman. And so at the end of the day, when they're like, all right, be nice again, you're like, fuck you. Like, no, I'm in a horrible, like, I'm in attack mode. The minute I wake up, I'm ready to attack 5 days a week, and it spills into the weekend. And so yeah, there was just a lot of I just couldn't compartmentalize, and I couldn't keep one thing separate from the other. It was like I was always in that attack sort of thing. And
well, I'll continue this conversation a bit later.
Okay, sounds good.
Danny, Eli, I'll talk to you guys a little bit later.
Okay.
Sounds good. Have a good phone call. Good luck.
I'll be listening in.
All right.
You better not be listening in and
Double team.
Sorry
Okay.
about that. Now we can really talk some shit.
Now, give me a heads up too before we go, because I do have a couple things to announce. But let's
Sure.
keep talking.
Oh, no
Let's
problem.
keep talking for now.
Absolutely, it's on your time.
Well, so back to work environments, I admittedly have been binging Kitchen Nightmares until like 4 in the morning the past couple nights. And just seeing Gordon like break through to like the owners of like how their employees like actually like are experiencing the work environment. Like there was one episode where like the two owners had no idea of how dysfunctional their business was. And
Yeah.
so Gordon sat them in another room watching a monitor and a camera attached to Gordon in like the main room with all the employees and basically asking them what they actually thought of their bosses, not telling them that there was a camera in there. And so every employee was completely honest with like how dysfunctional the two bosses were and like how mean the head chef was to everybody.
Yeah.
And then Gordon was like, all right, they were watching the whole time and brings them in, which is diabolical, to be honest.
Yeah.
But it actually broke through to the head chef, and he was like, I am so sorry for treating you guys that way. I had no idea. Because he was like threatening to fire people over like just basic like communication stuff, like asking if dishes were on time and stuff like that. And he completely changed him.
Yeah, and but you know that's the key though, is that they cared.
Yeah.
And so they changed. And so my problem is with people like, you know, I've been on both sides of that. And so and I think that, so just to speak freely, I mean, I just did another podcast, the Last Stop Brooklyn podcast, and as it turns out, a lot of people heard it, including some pretty notable people as it got back to me, and I was like, whoops.
Like Obama? Was Obama one of them?
Well, he hears everything. He spies on our phone calls. Don't you know?
That's how he listens to
Turn on
podcasts, is through
Fox
the
News.
NSA.
The truth is out there. The truth is out there, and so are the viewers. But no, I think that for me, the problem was it's not just being mean to people or threatening to fire, because when I was in charge, I never fired anybody. I was told to fire someone twice and refused. There was another person I was told to fire, and I wouldn't, because I didn't feel like it was my responsibility. And then there was another person that I didn't, just because I knew it was someone. It was a reflexive thing, and I was like, I'm going to give this 2 hours, and they won't want this person fired. And so that all. And then like I said, there was one person who I literally, and he knows this now, like I was especially hard on, especially like difficult, like to this person. It was because someone wanted him fired, and I was just trying to say, and I knew if I told him that, he'd freak out.
Yeah.
But it was literally like, dude, you're about to get a bullet. Like, I'm trying to just follow me. Like,
it's for your own
listen
good.
to me. And so my last year at Fallon, I was dealing with a great deal personally on like 2 or 3 fronts. One thing that I kept very private from everybody, and then I was dealing with some health stuff that I didn't even realize, and it took like therapy and going to get I had like a detailed physical done earlier this year, and it was pretty alarming. Turns out I had like a mini stroke.
Oh shit.
Oh shit.
And but it went undiagnosed, because you can recover on your, like, my wife at the time and my child were not home, and so when I staggered into the apartment looking like Reverend Jim from Taxi, there was no one there to be like, what the hell happened, dude? So I just took a shower and felt better, and was like, okay, great. And then
slept off a mini stroke.
No, I kept working. I took
Okay.
I took a shower and I ate some nachos, and I sat down and I wrote for 3 hours. And
wow.
But then over the next few weeks, the writing got harder and harder. It just, I couldn't get that gear. My right arm was killing me, and it took it forever to figure that out. And then also there was the big important thing was behind the scenes. Every day we would have a monologue, meeting. We'd have a read, and I knew there were days that my energy wasn't good, and I knew there were days that I just did not come off as I looked beat up, and it was because a lot of times, especially early on, um, the arc for me and Jimmy in that year plus was really bad at the beginning, then amazingly good to the point where he was amazingly generous and trustworthy and kind of just let me and really took my word and took some chances and did some jokes that were really outside his comfort zone, and which was great. Um, and then someone else came into the office and she kind of got between us. And long story short, I haven't seen him in over 2.5 years. But you know, I think that in that early stage, especially, and then towards the end, when I didn't understand why we were having problems all of a sudden, um, they don't realize that when you're one of those people that's close to the sun, so to speak, um, you might have had a really rough day by like 11:30 in the morning. I mean, you might have, you might get feedback, you might get notes, uh, even if it's secondhand, just hearing it from hey, just so you know, I heard Jimmy really didn't like whatever, and you're beaten up, and so people see you, and I used to always say with Miles, when AD Miles was head writer, I'd be like, Jesus Christ, what's this guy's problem? Like, God, he's just always such a grump. And then when I took over for him, I was like, oh, that's his problem.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's what it is. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, it's probably like that at a lot of places where it's just, especially in the age of Trump, where, God, it's just exhausting,
So many
and,
things
and
go
it's
back to
just,
stress.
but the bottom line is that it is your responsibility to be responsible for how you come across to other people. And if you're coming across as being unapproachable, crass, difficult, mean, two things: someone's going to take advantage of that. Someone's
Mhm.
going to swoop in and undercut you and say, see, look how mean they are.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, it's on you to, at some point, you just have to be honest. And what I wish I had done was, um, I wish I just, when things were tense with Jimmy at the end, um, I don't know. I wish I'd just gone to him. I wish I'd just said, um, I can't do this anymore, and we need to figure out, and this is wrong. This is going wrong, and this is going wrong, and more importantly, I just don't feel well. I don't know what's going on, and I know that it's coming across as me being difficult. And again, it's like the Bruce Pritchard thing. I know that the rumors are starting again that Ryman doesn't play well with others and Ryman's grumpy and everything. But it's like that's it's on you when you're
Yeah.
not when you're hurt, when you're struggling, it's on you to come forward and say, hey guys, I'm having a hard time. And if you don't, then and you keep it bottled up, then that's when people just go, you know what, they're a jerk. And
Mhm.
so yeah, and so that's why I think it's I've tried to be more open, especially as of late. Um, and I don't know what it's. I know that other people have. It, it's helped other people. I've gotten a lot of messages from people who have been going through, so especially now during this
Yeah.
quarantine. I mean, we're all going to come out of this really scarred, and
Mhm.
so you just have to be. If you're struggling, just be honest. Just say, "Hey, I'm a little, not at 100% today," and so don't take it personally.
Yeah, it's weird because being open, it feels like it's such a new concept, and people don't realize like how stressed they are and how that factors into their mood, their how their work, how they communicate with others, and a lot of people don't know how to let people know that they're stressed and that they're not dealing with things like at their best.
Yeah, and yeah, that's true, but it also comes back to, again, the longer you let something fester, the longer you it's the worse it gets. And it's sort of like if you're watching a basketball game and a team scores 3 baskets in a row, the other coach calls a timeout.
Yeah.
Like if you watch the Celtics, Brad Stevens stops that right then. If it's Doc Rivers, it might be 2 baskets, and then he stops it. The problem is if you just go, well, it'll work itself out. The next thing you know, you're down 20 points in the first quarter, and your guys are all tired, and then they all hate each other, and then the game's over. And so it's like you kind of have to be like that with life too, where um, especially now as I look at what to be doing next, it's you know, is this sustainable? Will this make me happy? Does the idea of doing this give me a headache? Like is this, um, and then if there are some of the pratfalls where it's like, well, you're gonna have to deal with this, and this. It's like, okay, we'll come up with ways to deal with them in advance, so that you're not caught off guard and you're not, because I feel like no one does. I feel like, especially in entertainment, people get promoted or they get a gig and they just celebrate and they go, "Oh, this is going to be fantastic," and they don't consider, well, you got to get some padding, so to speak. You got to protect yourself a little bit now because it's your schedule is going to change and the pressure is going to be different, and it's going to come to an end someday. And make sure you prepare for that and make sure you set yourself up so that you have some say over it and so that you can enjoy that end and have it be as peaceful landing as possible.
Yeah, I've fallen into that trap in comedy before. Um, and you're right. I got a great job, and I was like, "This is perfect." And I was like the frog in the boiling water, where the heat just kept getting turned up. And by the time I realized it was boiling, things were already very bad.
What kind of job was this?
It was a podcast.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's what
The
happens.
most prestigious.
Yeah, well, that's how it happens. But we have to stop that pattern. Like we have
I'm
to.
glad I went through it.
Yeah, but I mean, we have to, um, you know, we have to find a way to not. I mean, that's my goal is to not repeat the same mistakes
Yeah.
Sure.
and to set limits and to set limits on this is how much work I'm going to do on this, and I'm going to spend all the time I have doing it. And hey, if I go down a YouTube rabbit hole or if I'm distracted, well, shame on me because when 90 minutes is up, 90 minutes is up. And so you better get the work done now and then spend the rest of that time of the day doing whatever else you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And also be real, like it's, I know that I think my thing is, it's dangerous to fall into a gig that becomes a long-term gig because you really do get shut off from everything else and you really
Mm-hmm.
do get shut off from the industry, and you generally end up with a manager or an agent that as you make more and more money, which means they're making more and more money, some of those other offers may kind of disappear as they should instead of getting to you.
Because they're not considered like reliable moneymakers.
Well, all I know is like I know a couple examples when I was at Fallon where people left and they got a gig offer, and I remember Miles saying like, "Yeah, man, they went through everybody on the staff," and I privately thought I didn't get that offer, and I was kind of led to believe by someone that it's because people didn't like me, and I believed it because I was like, well, yeah, because the way I was at the beginning, people probably didn't like me. And then eventually it took someone else in the industry who said to me, well, it's equally possible that the person collecting commission on your higher paying job at Fallon maybe said, he doesn't need to know about this offer.
Oh yeah.
So it's, it could be either or. And I'll let you decide there. I mean, the odds of someone at some new show across the country knowing your personal business from 8 years ago, pretty slim. especially when you're different now, and the people who would know you now would not talk about that. Um, so yeah, it's like that's the dangers of the longer you stay somewhere, and also you get complacent. And like I said, it's like being in the it's like being in a swimming pool. The longer you're in the pool, the longer you're in that water, colder it is when you get out.
Yeah.
So you got to kind of set limits and say, I'm going to do this for this amount of time. And like really, the minute you're doing it, kind of have that plan B. Kind of think, what's my side hustle? What's my next thing going to be? So you keep moving. And I think that some friends I know who've done that, they've been so much happier because they've met other people. They've gotten to do different things, and their network of friends, and is just so much greater. And you know, so I think that um, yeah, I think that you're to limit yourself to one thing. It pays a lot of money, but again, it's like it's risky. What happens when it all goes away? And you all of a sudden, you look up and you're not some guy, and you're not in your late 20s anymore. You're in your mid 30s. You have a child, and you're just like shit. Like and comedy's changed, and um, like in my case, I wasn't coming from the show that was winning anymore, and so it was like fuck, and so it's really taken a lot of weird twists and turns to kind of sort of be on the verge of being back in the door, and a lot of failures and a lot of surprising things, but just that was where WWE came into play, was teaching me the business side. And so the thing that the TV thing that I'm working on now, it's been thought out from the very beginning. It was thought, how can we make this? How can we make this during a pandemic? How can we make this during quarantine? How can we keep this affordable? Why would people want to watch this? And that was the business side was all thought out by myself and my partner, my production partner, for weeks before I even got into the creative side of it. It was just like, let's get this done first. Let's build the foundation. Then I'll start dressing it up and making it seem fun and everything. And so that's what I learned from Vince was, let's talk about how doable this is. Then let's talk about why. And then if it passed those two tests, okay, now let's start coming up with some ideas. The worst thing is when you come up with, like, I wrote a script with someone else from the studio, and it's a fantastic script, and it got us a lot of meetings, and everyone loved it, but it cost, especially with, I learned from Vince, I was able to read the pages and be like, well, this is going to, I could calculate in my head how much everything was going to cost. And then the pandemic hit, and I was like, oh, we're not doing this we can't even really talk about this for about 2 years. Just on page 2, it's it's an airport, so you're going to be in an open setting. You're going to need a counting crew and everybody that's 150 people standing around. This shit's not happening. And then you gotta have everyone in a cabin, and it's like, I was like, yeah, this is we got to sit on this for a little bit.
Hard
Do
to
the bar
translate
mitzvah
that to
sketch.
Zoom.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is that it's like you got to think, all right, well, what can we do? And I thought 30 Rock did an excellent job a couple weeks ago with their comeback special. I was real skeptical, but that was great. I thought they all showed you can do it, and so
Yeah, the Parks and Rec sketch kind of blazed the trail, but it was like a Zoom show essentially. I'm sorry, the Parks and Rec reunion, not sketch. And it was like a Zoom show basically. In 30 Rock, they were obviously not in the same location except for Lutz and his wife, but it did feel more like an episode of, like, a regular episode of 30 Rock.
and so yeah, and then it's but at the same time, it's like, I hope people don't get married to that. Like, I hope we realize that's a new way of doing TV. But like, I've been very careful in this new pitch deck that, I did my pass. The company that greenlit it on their end, they're going over it this week, and then next week we talk about who we're going to try to pitch to, and I think we're just gonna. We already have a possible partner lined up. We have two actors committed. There's one that doesn't know he's getting a phone call yet, but he will. He'll be caught off. He'll be very caught off guard. But I'm really looking forward to calling him and talking to him for the first time in a couple of years because this part is fantastic for him. But yeah, it was. I've made sure to not keep it in that bubble. I've made sure to try to set us up so that when things go back to normal, we have an out. We have a way to kind of break out and say like, oh, now this is why we're able to do more, stuff with more people and everything. Just because like people need people, man. Yeah, it's like you gotta have that camaraderie. You gotta be around people and in a room, and so it can't just stay like this forever. Like
I mean,
like
I don't need to be. I'm perfectly happy.
There's definitely some people that can live. They can happily live like this, but I don't think.
But
it's
no,
the
I
way
am. I mean,
should
it is.
be.
Yeah,
Well,
Not forever.
I enjoy it, but it's also taken a toll. I mean, I enjoy not having to see many people, but it's
well.
also
Here's what I'll say.
unhealthy.
I think I like it in that I would love to. I'd love to. Even when I was in New York, I wanted to end up back in New Hampshire somehow, and I just love New Hampshire, and I love being here, and especially the seacoast. It's a very weird kind of in Northampton, kind of this undiscovered area, and I love it. I love going. I haven't been able to because of all the idiots running without masks and everything. But I love going for walks down there, and especially during the winter, which I know sounds weird and masochistic, but I always get a good idea out of it. Just going in the cold, and the wind, and everything, and so yeah, it would be really nice to be able to be here, and especially in my hometown where I love everybody and be comfortable and be able to do meetings and things this way. But you got to go to work at some point, and it's I think that there's that so yeah, it's one thing when you're in the planning, and if there's a way to live. I think it's nice that we found a way for people can live where they want and live the life they want and communicate. But we all got to, you got to get in. It's not the same as being in a room with people and meeting the talent and just being around the action and just, you need that energy of wherever you are.
Yeah,
so,
like working together like a crew just feels.
Yeah,
especially when it works, feels nice. It feels great to like have a successful working team together.
Yeah, and it's funny too. Like with stand up, like I didn't, I didn't miss it too much just because my act's gonna have to change so much when I come back, and I'm kind of figuring out what that's gonna be. But then, it's funny. You never know what's gonna happen. I tried to watch the new Unsolved Mysteries, and I didn't like it. Spoiler alert. But I didn't like it in a way that it was my complaints about it did seem kind of funny. And then I was like, now I miss stand up. Like now I miss just the angle I had that kind of set me off, because it's like that was always the way with joke writing too, was when you have that strike one, you have that first joke, that's all, then you get rolling. That was what I tried to teach my students at Emerson. And my thing was like at the end of every episode of these Unsolved Mysteries, like, yeah, what better time to have a show where you say, if you've seen this person, than a time when we're all in our homes wearing masks. Like if you see this person because they happen to be living with you, right. But other than that, I don't know what success. And then there was this whole episode about aliens, and it was supposed to be scary, but like the aliens just sounded sloppy, like they were dropping people off at I don't know if you watched it, but it was like
I saw part of the first episode. I found it very depressing that people die and nobody knows how.
Oh, that's the thing. Is that that's the other thing, is that it's a Dateline with no ending.
Yeah,
like it's like, and then they got the guy right.
Right.
Nope, that's up to you.
Yeah,
me.
Yeah,
like,
it's your fault they haven't been caught
yeah,
yet.
Exactly.
You haven't done enough
yet. It happened to you.
Yeah,
but like the aliens one made me laugh too, just because it was like my friend and I were laughing at this one where first of all, like everyone in it was like, yeah, I was dropped off like about a mile and a half from my home, and I was like, oh my god, there's nothing worse than floppy aliens, like just like, and then there's literally this one part where the guy goes, so then the alien said to me, I'll be done in a minute. That was literally the line. That was literally what he said, and he
The
said it straight, and they
DMV.
never questioned it. Like in the episode, there's no host.
Uh-huh. How's there a
Like,
minute in space? How do aliens
but
know what a
also,
minute is?
but
Give
also
me a minute, won't you?
just like the idea that, like, oh my god, so the alien, like everyone wants to meet aliens. It's like aliens sound like idiots. Like it's
Mhm.
like, like I'll be done in a minute. It's like that's a bad barber at Supercuts, basically. Like,
Yes.
like did you just shave off my thing? Don't look yet. I'll be done. I'll just give me a minute. I'm just fixing it up. And then like it just they left a mess, and and everyone saw the UFO, and it was just like so little things like that. And so it's like you watch that by yourself, you're like, man, I wish I had a room full of people to, not a Zoom show, but just like
Yeah.
I wish I was somewhere with people to see, as I say it, to see their reactions, see their faces, see if they're clicking and feeling the same way I am about this. And so I'm thinking targeting, we're the rumor is supposedly January for the vaccine, and
Mm.
I've heard as early as December, but I think I'm going to be coming back to stand up. That's the plan. I didn't plan on it, but I do think I will, and going to try it. And targeting like New Year's, I'd like to come back, and so I've just been writing and stockpiling some of that stuff, and um, you know, um, and then just go back through it, go back through the topical jokes, and say, well, what can I shape and turn into bits? So it's not all pandemic really, because everyone's going to be doing,
Oh,
that's
God.
the new Uber,
Yeah.
the new Tinder jokes.
How bad are the how bad are the open mics
Quarantine.
gonna be?
So, what did you learn?
Hmm.
So instead of talking about quarantine, what did you notice? So for me, it's been like like the unsolved mysteries. It's been like this show where I'm like, yeah, here's the problem with this. Like it's a very flawed thing.
Well, we are coming up on the end here, John.
Okay.
I know you had something you wanted to say. We like to end each show on everyone going around the horn.
Danny? I think he died.
Yeah, he
And
freed.
and a local business. Oh, I might have frozen.
Yeah.
I am, of course, Elsa from Frozen. I can make the snow dance with me, and I can make my computer do the same.
Cool.
Am I back?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So we like to end the show on just everyone going around the horn giving a recommendation of something comedy related they've enjoyed lately, and a local business that you have been frequenting or would like to just give a shout out to that might be hurting during the pandemic. I will start. I watched the movie Blade last night for the first time, and it was really good. Pretty funny. Some motherfuckers only want like to ice skate uphill. Was a great line. And I'd like to recommend the Mexican restaurant across the street from me, Guapos. Is a very good local business. What about you, John? Do you have something comedy related you've enjoyed lately?
Well, I'll say first of all, I've enjoyed greatly watching comedy related. Seth Meyers has been hitting it out of the park every night, and so if you don't stay up late, they put it up on YouTube right away. So his monologue, especially at his in-laws, with the sea captain in the background and everything, it's just been so funny, and the closer look has been so funny. Um, so the announcement things, so the two things that I can talk about, I'm happy to say that I will be coming back to Emerson this
Oh, fantastic.
fall. And
Nice.
yeah, it's going to be teaching 2 classes this time. So
Now, is that
like,
online?
no, I'm gonna be there.
Wow.
As of right
Awesome.
now, we have like the social distance. Yeah, we have like the Emerson bubble set up, and so I'm gonna be like I guess Greg Popovich of the of the bubble. So I'll be going in, and half of it will be online, and half will be in the classroom. They're 2 classes, and they're different than what I taught last time, and lead. And it kind of works out because it kind of leads into the TV thing I was talking about. The other big thing though is so I have a couple friends. One guy who I went to Emerson with, and He's been one of my best friends for almost 20 years. He owns a gaming company,
Oh shit.
a small business in Salem, Massachusetts, and they were trying out this new comedy game that can be kind of played online and can be kind of done during quarantine as a fun way to just kind of keep people in touch. And so there was a day where they were looking for people to play test the game, and I did it because Sam's a good friend, and I owe him forever, and had a really good time. And then it kind of turned into me working with them on this, and so now we're getting ready to launch. And so later this month in August, it's basically a comedy game you can play with friends online or at a party. And right now we're working with half a dozen other comics, some really cool names, a couple of whom are studio people who've made it big. And happy to say here on the podcast, we want to give early access to all the listeners of the Comedy Studio podcast. So
Oh wow.
tonight, if you go to my website, cheap plug, which is rinemania.com. That's RINEMANIA.com. There'll be a form you can fill out on the page. If you give us your email, we'll invite you to give it a shot, try it out, and you should. It's just a really fun way to keep your skills sharp and pass the time, and just have fun and share some laughs with people. As we try to get through the final stage of this, and we think that it's something that will probably live on, particularly here in the Northeast, where half the year you don't go outside anyway. So,
are you sharing the name of the game yet, or are you keeping that under wraps?
We're still working on the name. We thought we had the name, and but we're keeping that on the wraps.
Cool.
Yeah, if you go to the website, rinemania.com, I'll be putting it up there as soon as we get off. And or you guys drop around 8 o'clock tonight, right?
Be up around 8 p.m.
Yeah, so right before then, I'll put it up. I'll make sure it's there. And dude, this is so much fun, and we've had so much fun doing it, and it's been an exciting time. As my friend said, I never thought I'd be a game designer.
Yeah,
who loves to game, but it's been a blast.
That's amazing.
And everyone we've run it with has loved it. And these are people with I was kind of nervous. I was like, I hope they like this game, and they were right in and having a blast. And so, check it out, and we'll keep everyone posted. And I urge everyone to play. And
awesome. We'll put a link in the show notes.
Are there
so
any system requirements that anyone should know about, or can it be used on any computer?
Yeah, I would say make sure you download Zoom.
Okay.
Before or you have some kind Zoom, or some sort of that's primarily the one, and that's the one we're going to be using. But you can familiarize yourself with video conferencing, and if you're playing, be ready to be funny. It's you got to be on your toes.
That's going to be a challenge to our listeners.
That sounds great. I'll be signing up myself.
Yeah.
All right, take us home, Eli. What would you like to recommend?
Well, Sam J's special just came out today, so I definitely want to give a shout out to that. Also, I haven't shown my girlfriend yet. She hasn't seen Cool Runnings yet, the movie, about the first
of course, a
Jamaican bobsled team. I want to rewatch that movie. So Cool Runnings is my other recommendation. And then the local business is, I'm going to shout out my favorite pizza place in Allston, Massachusetts, La Mama's Pizza, where I frequently say out loud that I am a La Mama's boy.
You are our favorite La Mama's boy, Eli.
I'm a La Mama's boy.
I want to give a quick shout, just one last thing too, since I talked up. Also, in addition to the old WWE, there's this new promotion, AEW, that I don't know if people know about. They're on every Wednesday night, TNT. A lot of guys you recognize from over the years. Jim Ross is the play-by-play guy. They got Chris Jericho. They're doing some really cool stuff too. And so I'd say them and Seth, and just listen to old Jimmy Buffett to get through the summer, have been kind of the safe havens. So give those all a shot.
All right. Well, John, thanks so much for joining us. I'm excited for the return.
Thank you.
Sounds
guys.
like a lot of cool things you got coming down the pike.
We'll see. One day at a time.
Yeah, that's a good motto.
Yeah.
All right. Well, take care, everyone.
For doing this.
Of course. Thank you.
Have a good one, John. This was awesome.
Bye, guys. Thank you very much.
See you later, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Ooh, pizza's here.